Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you step by step how we are installing solar panels. It's going to be knowledge sharing videos, and we're going to install 32 solar panels and 2 Tesla Powerwalls, but ideas is going to be applicable to any solar system, including Sol-ark, EG4, any kind of batteries and any kind of solar panels. I'm going to use this video myself as well to train my guys to set minimum standards for solar systems installation. If you're interested, let's jump into the video.
Usually I'm scheduling materials delivery on the same day when we start an installation. In this case, materials are not going to be stored for a long time at a client's location. I always have L-foots in stock, so we can start installing mounts on the roof, and we have about half day of work without any materials.
When we're installing a ladder, we're not using gutters protectors. We're light, so we're not gonna break them. But usually we install in between rafter, and when we climb on a ladder, I'm making sure that right there, I'm not sure if it's visible, it's gonna be a gutter mount, because if we're gonna install this here, it's gonna be much more movement. But here, this bracket is not letting gutter to go inside. When we are climbing on a roof, here's what should be on the roof: cock gun with a chain link M1, L-foots, chuck line, pry bar to lift shingles, and then 2 another boxes of L-foots. And inside this bag we have drill, we have impact gun, mallet to find rafters, this tool to locate rafters if we missed one, and basically that's it. When we are on the roof, we're gonna have these plans here. So this part of roof is this one, and here we see where we need to attach mounts to rafters. So all of these dots is rafter attachments. And for strings we have this plan. I have color coded this, but on a just black printer, adding this yellow, green, red and blue, 4 strings for Powerwalls. Now we're gonna mark all panels on the roofs, location of all panels, and start installing flash foots. Now when we have all marks where panels gonna be located, we're gonna start locating rafters. And we're using only rubber mallet, no metal, because metal is gonna damage shingles. And I'm gonna start locating rafters somewhere here, because at the end of the roof, at the edge right here, we can have less than 24-inch space between rafters. So here is going to be, like, let's say a rafter here, then next one is going to be 24, 24. On the right side is going to be 24, and here is might be like 18. So I'm trying like step away from side of the roof and start here.
Now we always do chuck line. It's a speeding up process of installation L-foots, and it's much easier to install in one straight line.
When we're drilling rafters on the last row here, if we miss rafter, it's going to be visible right here. So what we do is one person watching from the bottom and second person is drilling. Сюда. When we did locate rafters, one person is going to continue to drill all the holes and locate other rafters, and another person, myself, I'm going to start installing L-foots.
In general, it's much more efficient to do one type of the job at a time. For example, right now one person just carrying drill and rubber mallet, and other person is carrying pry bar and cocking gun.
There are many different types of shingles, but for these shingles I'm cutting a round shape, and it's going to be about ½ inch around this corner. So when water is going to drip, it's not going to go into this seal, it will go on a flashing and move around this flashing.
when we're torquing these lug bolts, we need to apply just enough torque so the gasket is going to be squeezed a little bit. If we torque lug bolt too much, the gasket is going to be teared around. It's not a big deal, but we need to do it properly. Now I'm installing second flashing, and it's not going further. And this is happening because this shingles, this layer is nailed somewhere here. So whenever I'm gonna move, I see where is the center of nail. It's gonna be somewhere here. And what I'm going to try to just leave this shingles. So it's gonna go above nail. And if it's gonna work, and it did work, we can just install flashing above nail and not remove this, because if we're going to remove nail, we'll need to lift these shingles, and it's going to be like we need to seal all of this around. Sometimes when it's hot, the caulking can go on the roof like that, and the best way is not try to remove when it's fresh. Just wait for 1 hour and we can remove almost all of this without making mess on the roof. And here's our delivery for solar panels and racking. Before accepting materials, I always ask in homeowner what is the best location to store panels, because it's going to be stored for a few days here. So I want to make sure, for example, if they use in garage, which is right here, then we cannot store this here. But we confirmed that this location is good. We did install all mounts on this side of the roof, and one person gonna continue to install mounts on other side of the roof. And I'm gonna move all rails and install them here. Before installing rails, we're gonna collect all trash on the roof, all shingles that we cut. So, proceeding with the rails, the roof should be clean. And on the roof, we're gonna have 2 garbage boxes. One is for recycle, all carton, and second box is gonna be for used tubes and for like all shingles and whatever we got. When we're installing rails, sometimes roof is not ideal leveled. I'm not sure if it's visible on the video, but it's a hump right there. So when we did install rails, here's the height on the maximum, and right here height is going to be on the minimum. And then the third one, it's also this height on the maximum. We can push rail and move this down, but it's better not to do it because we have a big lever here, but on this mount, on the middle one, we're gonna add a lot of stress on this rafter. I'm just gonna let the rail self-level and just tie it right here. Also, when I'm installing rails, bolts always going to be on the outer side of the panel. So on this side and this rail, we're going to install bolts. We're going to tie bolts from here. And the reason is because the roof is uneven. When we're going to install panels, and especially 2 row of the panels, it can be uneven. And to level this, we'll just insert impact gun underneath, and we're going to be able to adjust solar panel height without removing it. Here's a 4 hours progress. We did rails on that side, did all mounts on this side, installing rails. And whenever we're installing,
just look around, and for example right here, when electricians did upgrade panel, looks like they just forgot to install this boot right here. So when it's raining, water going here. So just take silicone and do homeowner a favor, just seal this. Powerwall is going to be installed on that side of the house. We're going to install junction box right here, and here we're going to have 2 strings. So now I'm going to bend conduit 3/4 EMT, and it's going to go to these rails, and then PV wires will continue to junction box. Whenever we have bender on a roof, we should have plywood as well, because we cannot bend on the shingles itself. So all bends must be done on the plywood, otherwise we can damage shingles.
If you're bending conduit first time, I would recommend to watch few tutorials and get a 1/2 inch EMT. It's going to be same principles for 3/4 and 1 inch, but with a 1/2 inch it's going to be easier to practice.
To secure conduit on the roof, I'm using this mount from a quick bolt. Потом, видишь, вкручиваю до конца, и он уже в этом силиконе. Secure conduit, we're using these straps and 2 self-tapping screws. On one side of conduit we're gonna have this bushing just to protect wires, and on the other side we're gonna have connector and stuff like that, and then grounding bushing. So we're gonna ground entire conduit.
Now we're going to run wires. On the short conduits we can run them without fish tape, and I'm just gonna hold conduit here to make sure it's gonna stay in place. And one person is pushing wires, and there we got them, so I'm just gonna pull them now. Now we're running wires for all 4 strings, and going to crimp them where strings is gonna start and terminate them in a junction box.
Now right here we're going to install junction box. It's one J-box from Iron Ridge. And usually the day before I'm preparing everything we need inside this box. We're gonna have connectors. This is for 2 strings, so we'll need 2 more pairs for 4 strings. Then we have connector to run conduit from the roof. Then we have strain relief for PV wires. And then we have 1 ground bushing for this connector to ground the conduit. When we install DIN contacts on the rails, I do all negatives and then all positives. And then when we're gonna land string, we need to make sure that those in the middle are from different string. So just in case if something's gonna happen here and those contacts are gonna start melting, and this side is gonna melt through, in this case we're not gonna have short in one string. So just extra safety.
After finishing all wires and racking, we can start lifting panels up. Note here, when we're lifting panels, the corner of the panel never touching the shingle. Those corners are really sharp, and if we gonna let the panel rest on one corner, it's going to damage shingle. And to lay down panel on a roof, I'm resting this on a racking system and then sliding to the shingle. And now two corners touching the roof, and in this case shingles are safe. Note here that all panels are resting on L-foots. In this case they cannot slide from the roof. Also, we need to make sure that panels are not resting on the wires, because we can easily damage insulation and it's gonna be problems in the future. Now we're going to start mounting panels on the racking. One person is gonna hold solar panel and other person is going to organize wires and connect panels together. After installing first panel, we're always checking that panel are parallel with the gutter line, and if needed we do adjustments. To organize wires, we're using iron reach clips and clipping two wires together and then zip tying the rest of the wires. What is important here is to protect wires as much as we can from UV exposure, and wires shouldn't touch the roof, because when it's raining it can get moisture into contacts and it's gonna cause the problems. Sometimes I do service older solar systems, and 90% of the time error is AFCI fault on the inverter, and it's happening because PV wires were exposed to the sun, insulation cracking over the time, and the moisture getting into the wire, and it's starting to leak current between positive and ground, so inverter is just gonna stop produce. So to prevent this, we have to organize wires as much as we can to protect from environment.
We did install 7 panels and we're finishing today. At the end of the day we're gonna clean up, remove all trash from the roof, remove all tools. So it's gonna be clean roof, and tomorrow we're gonna start installing racking on this part of the roof and installing panels here.
And here's a completely clean site before our departure. Here's the second day of installation. We are continuing installing solar panels on this part of roof.
When we finish one set of the panels, we're gonna do cleanup, so all of this trash is not gonna fly around the neighbors. When we are installing panels, we are adding bolts between panels here and there, and basically it's just like some safety gap right here. And the reason is because when we install an entire row, and if somewhere in the row one of the panel like a little bit offset or went a little bit off, then the second row is going to be worse. We're not going to have like any margin to play. So by inserting mid clamps right here and bolting the panel, we are adding ourselves just a 1/4 inch of gap for error margin. And this gap is not going to be visible from the bottom right there, but what is going to be visible is this straight line. And by adding this gap, we can always play a little bit with the panel to make this line perfect. We're always trying to set rails as low as possible, so it's going to be better visual appearance of solar panels. Sometimes when we install panels and the roof is not ideally leveled, we'll see situation like that. Different in heights between panels is about 1/4 inch, so we can see this here. But if we look at the panels from a street view right here, we'll never see this height difference from here. If it's going to be opposite, if top panels is going to be higher than lower panel, then of course we're going to notice this. It's going to be like that. So we'll need to fix this. But if we have like small height difference, like 1/4 inch, we're not going to raise entire row to level this. We're just going to leave it as it is. And in this case, it's going to be better visual appearance, just in my opinion. Now I'm going to clean up truck and prepare for next day, and we're good for the next day. Now we have all panels on the roof. We're gonna continue installation, but before that we have all wires coming into junction box. So we're gonna finish junction box for PV wires and then continue with the panels. And here's the junction box. We're not using ground bar anymore. Someone recommended to use this grounding, DIN rail contact, and actually it's accepting 6 gauge from one side. We're gonna connect 10 gauge, which is gonna go from the roof, and it's grounding this rail as well. Now when we finished all panels, we can cut excess of rails. All panels connected. We're going to switch to power walls and install them, and then we're gonna know where to penetrate the roof to run 3/4 conduit, connect with this conduit, and run wires to junction box. Now we have 2 power walls. One of them is going to be located between these windows and the other is going to be there. So now we need to find studs. And usually stud is going to be on the 2 sides from bends. So one stud potential is going to be here and other is here. The distance between studs usually it's 16 inch over the center.
We're missing stud here, so we're going to move a little bit left to see if it's there. After allocating studs, I'm going to seal all holes and install Powerwall mount. We need to use 1/4 inch lug bolts with minimum 2.5 inch embedment into the stud. Before driving lug bolts, we need to pre-drill sucker with 1/4 inch concrete drill bit.
Много ты его туда вовнутрь набивал?
Не, если она там будет сидеть. And now we have 2 power walls mounted. And right here we have 3 total power wall mounted on this dolly. Next step, we're gonna bend conduits. With the conduit, what is important that conduit should be going straight into here. So right now we have gap here, but it's close to this side. What's gonna happen if we try to connect this connector? When I'm gonna insert this plastic, this MT is not gonna go here. But even if we push this hard, then when we're gonna start torquing this nut, it's gonna strip the thread here. So now I need to a little bit straighten this EMT so we can have like ideal line. And the same there. We shouldn't see any gaps between wall and conduit. And here's the conduit, ideally touching the wall.
To run solar wires through the roof, we need to install this flashing.
When we're cutting shingles for this flashing, we need to make sure that we're not cutting through bottom layer of shingles. So to prevent this, I'm just gonna insert pry bar and now cut this here. So in this case, I'm making sure I'm not gonna cut bottom layer. Now we're going to install conduit. It's right here, and usually it's a 2-person job. One person is gonna hold conduit. I'm going to install flashing, and then this person is gonna push conduit, and I'm gonna hold flashing in place. Then I will position this flashing and nail this to the roof. Так, я готов, давай. And now, as an extra protection, I'm applying 3/4 additional rubber boot. So in this case, because we can add stress on the outer on this boot, but that one is gonna just rest on a EMT conduit without stress, and it's gonna be more waterproofed. Also, when you're working on the roof and cutting conduits or any metal parts, if you have something like this, remove this from a roof, because if you leave this here and step on this, it's going to damage shingles and go into the shingles. And here's the conduit from a junction box going down to a Powerwall. Now I'm always opening this LB so we can push wires from bottom to here. Also, when I'm opening LB, I'm always inserting this back and screw this, so we're not gonna lose. Don't leave it here because it can fall from this hole. Here is gonna stay. In a location where conduit penetrates in the roof, I'm using this kind of baseboard molding silicone. It's easy to clean up with the water, and we can easily paint this if needed. Now we have steel tape, and we're gonna pull wires. It's a two-person job usually. One person is gonna push wires into LB right there, and the second person is just gonna pull. And more force is gonna be on that side, whoever is pushing, and we need to make sure that we're not stripping insulation through edges of LB, so we have to be extra careful. Here's a finished junction box. Now we need to do pictures to show inspector that we have drain holes. One here, and the second is right there. And we're gonna close this, connect last panel and the paint conduit, and we are done on the roof. Final step here is the paint conduit. And now we finished with the roof. Now we need to finish AC wiring for Powerwalls, and we're done with installation. When we are pushing wires through LB and we have something like that, we always need to make it straight, because if we're gonna push just like that, we're gonna damage the insulation. And here's the finished LB. I'm always leaving some slack here, so to make sure that insulation is not going to be damaged. Now we can close this.
To maximize charging efficiency, we are spreading 4 strings somewhat equally between 2 power walls.
Now I'm going to mark this enclosure, and we have 1 inch knockout. It's going to be enough for 2 6-3 cables. So I'm just gonna place this here, mark circle, cut this, and then we're gonna use hub with a nipple and with a sealing lock nut to connect them together. Now we're going to pass wires from this conduit to there, and it's a lot of wires. We have six gauge cables, then we have 2 for emergency stop button, 1 ground, and 1 communication wire for Tesla backup switch. And this is 1.25 inch conduit, which is enough, but still I'm going to use this lubricant, so it's going to be easier to pass wires. Now we have all wires in LB, and those AC wires for Powerwall here. And here's the finished wire on Powerwalls. We're always leaving service loop for wires, just in case we need some extra for the future. PV wires. And on this power wall we have one wire for emergency stop button and communication. And on the other power wall we have all same wires plus communication with the backup switch, which is going inside this conduit and it's going to be there.
In AC disconnect, maximum diameter for a knockout is 1 inch, but we need 3/4 of an inch. Oftentimes, if I try to knock out 3/4, I can damage 1 inch and this spot is going to be leaking. To prevent this, I'm going to drill 2 holes where 3/4 is holding to the box, and then I will punch the smallest hole and work out to the 3/4.
In the electrical panel, when I'm wiring all of this, I'm always trying to move those 6 gauge wires behind all other wires. For example, we have this monitoring system from Emporia right here, and I want to move them behind them. So if owner wants to remove monitoring system or add new circuits, it's going to be easier to do if bigger gauge wires behind the rest of the wires. And here we finished all wiring. Emergency stop button. Then we have AC disconnect for one power wall, AC disconnect for second power wall, and here's the Tesla backup switch. We're just gonna hang this here and call PG&E to install this. Now we're gonna do cleanup. We just finished installation. So here's one power wall. Important item to mention that this communication cable is going without conduit, and this area is not exposed to the sun, but if it's going to be exposed to the sun, we need to run conduit because Cat 5 cables, this insulation is not UV resistant and over time it's gonna crack. But in this case we don't have sun, so we did run outside to other power wall. We did clean up area. Here's the Tesla backup switch, 2 AC disconnects, and we're gonna schedule inspection.
Alright guys, that's all about this video. If I can give you just one advice from entire video, whenever you install a solar system, be extra careful to wires insulation. From my experience, it's a #1 reason why solar system failing, due to damage to insulation or badly crimped connectors. I hope you will find something useful in this video, and as always, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.